and obviously you can have as much as you want.
Wow, so I can get drunk on the job?
You can definitely get drunk on the job. That's the whole point of Wine with Adam.
Let me finish the point before you speak.
I didn't say anything.
You externalize your emotions and everything you have to say, and I know
quiet.
you so well.
No, I'm quiet. What was the hardest part about making the film? Because I'm gonna go there.
Going to prison.
Hi, welcome to Wine with Adam. I'm your host, Adam Scott Bellos, and today we have a very special guest, my very good friend, Rudy Rochman. Rudy Israel. Rudy, how are you today?
Baruch Hashem, how are you?
I'm fantastic. It's so great to see you here today. First, we are going to try some really delicious wine. We picked out a very special wine, a winery that I know Rudy likes very much, a winery that I like very much. Today, we are going to be drinking the 2019 Shilo Mosaic. This is the flagship wine of the Shilo Winery. It's a traditional Bordeaux blend made of Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Petit Verdot, and Cabernet Franc. What do you think?
I love dry red wine, so
Yeah.
amazing. On top of that, it's from Judea and Samaria.
So, Rudy,
Adam.
you're a son, a brother, a soldier, an activist, and a filmmaker. What am I missing?
B'ezrat Hashem, at some point, a husband,
A
and
husband
a father,
or a wife,
and
but right now we're going to settle with son, brother, soldier, activist. So let me ask you a question. What was it like? You know, you were born in Paris. You moved here when you were like 2. Then your parents took you to the States, and I believe you grew up mostly in Miami.
Yeah.
But you moved around quite a lot from what I understand is when you were a kid. What was it like to move around so much as a child?
So often people ask me and my brothers, was it difficult to grow up like that? And I think it would be difficult for someone that has a stable life and then all of a sudden has a life that has constant changes. But for us, this is all that we knew. So I don't have anything to compare it to. I only knew the life of constantly traveling, changing environments, new schools, new languages, new people, new friends constantly.
How many languages do you speak?
I speak 3 languages fluently. So French, Hebrew, and English. But that growing up made other things happen. First of all, it gave me an ability to express myself very easily because I've had to tell my story every single time in a new language with a new environment. So it gave me that comfort within my own story. It also made our family much closer because as everything was always changing, what always remained the same was our family and the connection that we had to each other. So a lot of those things, I see it as like a good thing that developed from that experience. Also, it made it very clear to me that everywhere is a temporary experience besides Israel. And Israel was always the constant that happened. Every single summer, we'd come back to Israel. We knew that at some point we needed to come back to Israel. So that was the constant in my life, whereas everything else was changing.
So a lot of people don't know that you went into the Army when you were 17. We met when we were, I think I was 22, you were 17.
Yeah.
What was that like, leaving your family for the first time and becoming a Chayal Boded?
So my family always knew that I was going to the Army. From a young age, it was, I have to go and serve my home, my country, my people. I saw it as every Israeli has to do the Army. What makes me any different? I'm a part of the nation of Israel. This is my home. If I ever get persecuted wherever I'm living, I'd want to come back to my homeland. So I too, just like anyone else, should serve for my country.
Is there any film of our Laila Amim from the Army?
I don't have videos, but maybe we can.
We gotta find that because it was just so
The one where we
ridiculous.
dressed up. And we did
Yeah,
all
where
that
we
stuff.
played, where we did the Jersey Shore.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's something that is missing in the next generation's, I guess you could say, values towards developing a strong Jewish identity?
I think, fortunately, we've been raised in a generation with very good lives. But what comes with that is a sense of comfort and not an understanding of consequences of actions and never having to suffer. And I think going to the army, no matter where you were raised, whether they were Jews that were living in Russia, in France, in America, wherever we came from, we all came back and were going through an experience together where we had to give up our freedom. It's something that we had never understood what it means to give up your freedom.
So you served 2.5 years in the Army, almost 3 years. You extended your time. After you get out of the Army, you decide you're going to go finish your college degree. Start. You spend 2 years doing whatever, and then you transfer to Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
What is that like? Because as I think anybody knows, Columbia University, probably one of the most actively or proactive pro-Palestinian communities, SJPs, anti-Israel, anti-Semitism bullshit.
But I chose it for that reason. I remember when I was applying to universities, I typed in #1 most anti-Semitic university in North America. That year, Columbia University was #1.
So
yeah, I get
this is like where your career kind of began, if I'm correct. Like you're one of the first people. Like Instagram is becoming a thing. YouTube is finally becoming like this bigger platform. Like it always existed, but like 2015, YouTube stars had really become a thing. Like, and you start putting videos of you debating anti-Zionists on camera. Where did you get the idea for that?
So I'd come to Columbia University understanding that I'm in a war zone and experiencing that from day one.
So like your approach was, I'm at war.
Yes. But it was a situation where I had not only the majority of the university body against Israel, the student groups and their coalitions against Israel, the professors, the administration, the advisors, almost every single level you had this view that Israel was the worst thing in the world. Mm-hmm. And I realized very quickly that the way that they were spreading this message is they were going to every single minority group on the college campus, which today college campuses that are liberal champions themselves on fighting for minority rights, black rights, women rights, Native American rights, LGBTQ plus rights, and so on, and convincing every single one of these groups that their source of struggle and suffering was either linked to Israel's doing that same thing to the Palestinians, or Israel's even responsible for your suffering of your community. And when I got there, I realized I needed to create a new movement on campus, one that wasn't afraid to stand up and to speak out, one that was grassroots, not under any sort of umbrella organization. And we focused on 3 things: to empower, to narrate, and to protect. Empower was our jobs to give the tools to the students, Jewish and not, because you can have non-Jews that are allies as well. A lot of Jews went through Jewish education and were not given the tools of how to be Jews in practice. And the first goal that we had was to make sure to give those tools to the students. So we brought training sessions and teachers and coaches of how to do public speaking, how to do debates, how to have the courage in conversations, how to create coalitions, how to break coalitions. The second thing we focused on was to narrate the story of Israel. You don't want to hear about the story of Israel in terms of dates and accomplishments of cherry tomatoes, ways and drip irrigation, because that doesn't speak the language of the younger generation, which cares about human experiences that make the world a better place. And I believe the story of Israel is the story of a 4,000-year-old native civilization that came from the land of Judea, that were physically and forcibly displaced by a Western white imperial nation called the Romans. And even during our displacement, we maintained a constant presence in that land until finally we came back home and revived our ancient civilization, which should create a light and model to all minorities and indigenous peoples throughout the world. And the third thing was to protect any and every movement that was against Israel, whether on the right, on the left, or whatever position they stood on. It was our job to expose those bad ideas and to bring light to where there was darkness.
So in a nutshell, what did you glean from the 2 years at Columbia?
What did I learn?
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot. On a personal level, I would say I learned how to create movements, how to do advertisement, how to deal with controversy, how to deal with people trying to attack you and defame you, what works, what doesn't work. That even if you come to a situation that's impossible, if you believe in yourself and you keep putting the effort, eventually it will come out. The beautiful thing is that a university is 4 years. So if you focus your energy on the freshmen, at some point they will become the senior, and by then you've already taught and created relations with the entire university, because the older, let's say, contaminated ideas of people have already been washed out.
I want to talk to you a little bit about what you're working on now. You have this project called We Were Never Lost. So tell me, how did you say, I'm gonna make a documentary about the lost tribes of Israel? Like, what goes on in one's head when that happens?
What happened was I was a student at Columbia University, and I was at the Chabad house one day working on my laptop. There's a woman who comes with a beautiful handmade kippah with menorahs and a Magen David on top, and she gives it to the rabbi as a gift. And I look at that kippah and I'm noticing it from the side, and she says, "Oh, I just came back from Africa and I brought you this kippah." And I come to her after she finishes speaking to the rabbi. I'm like, "Listen, where did you get that kippah from? And from Africa, what's the story?" And she pulls out her phone and shows me Jews that are praying, that are putting tefillin, that are speaking in Hebrew in Uganda and in Tanzania. And it's like, okay, I've heard of Ethiopian Jews, I've heard of Ashkenazi Jews who live in South Africa, and for me that was a shock. You know, I've been so passionate about Jewish history my entire life, cared so much about the Jewish people, and all of a sudden I'm 24 years old at Columbia University and finding out about communities of Jews that I had never heard of. And so the first reaction that I had was a shock. Imagine you're 24 years old and you find out that you had a brother or sister your whole life that you never knew about. I felt wronged. Okay, I felt like I should have known these people, and there was something that didn't tell me.
Like they were robbed from your narrative.
They were robbed from my experience, from me being able to connect them. That's the pain that I'm talking about. I was wronged in that sense. And the third thing was I need to find out what's true, what's not true, and to fix this problem so that it doesn't happen again. And what originally started as, you know what, let's make a documentary, eventually realized that a documentary is not enough space either. We have to do a documentary series, and each season is on each region. And even in the region, we have 6 episodes, and even that is not enough. There's still more communities that we're finding.
So what's your goal with We Were Never Lost? What do you want to accomplish?
I have 3 goals with We Were Never Lost. To reconnect the descendants of Am Yisrael together in a clean way. And the second goal I would say is to change the way the world understands the Jewish people.
And
number 3, inspire many disconnected Jews, Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Mizrahi, whatever they are, to love their culture again.
What was the hardest part about making the film? Because I'm gonna go there.
Going to prison.
You leave for your first trip for this project. You publicize the hell out of it. There's obviously some political tension in the country.
Sure.
So what happened? Why were you accused of this?
So the reason that they had a problem with us is because the Nigerian government has been persecuting the Igbo people for many years now. So you have a reality where we come to do a documentary on the history of a population, not their modern history, but more their ancient history, their origins, their aspirations,
But
their
you didn't
practices.
let the Nigerians know.
No, we did let them know.
Okay, so how?
Because we got there and it blew up on social media in Nigeria, and a lot of the Igbos and those that were separatists took our images and said, the Israelis are finally here to help us, and some people started running with conspiracy theories saying, the Mossad sent 3 Israelis with a Sefer Torah, which is actually a bomb that is going to be used to blow up the Nigeria, and a bunch of nonsense. And so the government is very paranoid, and they hear these accusations, or they come up with them themselves in order to stop our project because they realize that this is going to be something that they don't want to happen. And they come, and at the 3rd day that we were there, Friday morning, 7:30 in the morning, 15 armed gunmen with black ski masks pointing guns at us, order us to get into a van, and we disappear for 3 weeks.
What's the first thing that goes through your head when you see 15 men with black ski masks pointing guns at you?
My first reaction was, it's just a misunderstanding. We're going to come with them. They just want to ask us a few questions. This is what they were telling us. It'll take a few hours and we'll get back. So at first we're looking at it in a very optimistic way. They take us from the hotel. They load us each into a separate van surrounded by 5 soldiers, drive us to this government location, and they start the interrogations, the good cop, the bad cop, every single question you could imagine about my life.
English?
Yes, and Nigeria used to be a British colony, so most people speak English there. So they're speaking in English. And at night, we realize, okay, we're gonna probably spend the night here because it's already been the whole day. It was supposed to take a few hours. And I find myself Friday night in a government facility where they had prepared at the same time a huge Shabbat dinner by the Igbos in the community we were visiting. And instead of being there with the whole community that came from all over Nigeria, we're in this government facility locked up. And I realized this is going to be the first Shabbat that I miss Kiddush. And so I convinced the guards to go and find me grapes. And he finds the grapes, we take the grapes, and we do the Kiddush over the squeezed grapes and the grape juice. And we were able to do Kiddush on that, and we found some crackers that he found for us because we didn't eat a whole day. And so he found some open crackers, we did the motzi, and we stood strong. It was only the next morning that I know that, okay, now there's something wrong. And it's at 7 a.m. again, they come into our holding room, again at gunpoint, yelling at us in a very aggressive way, get up, get up, get up. And we quickly put our shoes on, we were sleeping on the floor, we go outside and 3 vans again are waiting for us, but now they're putting us in the same van. And I'm asking myself, why are there 3 vans if we're going in the middle one? And why did they take us on a different pattern than we're being taken originally? Like, something's not aligning. And Noam gets on, and David gets on, and Ima Lisbon gets on, and right before I get on, I asked them, where are you taking us? And they said, you don't need to know. And he pushes me inside. And this is when I realized that the front and the back car is actually the patrol, and we're the cargo. And now they're shipping us somewhere. Now, are they taking us to execute us? Are they taking us to another place? I have no idea. They're being very aggressive, and by their body language, I'm completely in soldier mode at this point. You know, anything can happen. We could be executed at any moment, so I need to be prepared for that moment, because if it does, my story is not going to end in some hole in Nigeria. I'm going to get out of here. And so the entire car ride, we were 15 hours in the car. The entire car ride, I'm thinking to myself, how do I get one of their guns and take out the soldiers so we can get out of there? But I'm not going to do that until I know for sure that this is what they have planned. So I'm studying the land. Is it in the cities? Is it in the jungles? I'm looking at the signs. Am I getting closer? Am I getting further from certain cities? And eventually they kind of slip up and admit that we're going to Abuja, which is one of the larger cities. And there is where your investigation is going to continue. So at this point, I'm convinced, seeing Abuja getting closer, that we're not actually going to be killed and we're being taken somewhere else. And that's where we ended up spending 3 weeks in prison. So we get to this government facility, and they have us into a janitor type room. There's all sorts of equipment and things that are old and used and replacement. And so we're there, and they open a wooden door on the side, you know, with the slits like in a locker room where you can see from one side. They open this door. Behind it is a metal cage gate door. They open that door, and then they pull out this elderly Nigerian man with like a matted beard. His jeans were ripped up, swollen leg, barefoot with shackles, like walking like this, clearly sick. Who knows how long he spent in this cage. They pull him out, they close the cage, and they walk out with him. And I look at Noam and David and I said, I think that they took him out because they're planning us to put us in. They picked us up and they threw us inside. We find ourselves in maybe the size of this little corner, 5 meters by 5 meters, full of rat feces, human urine, writings on the wall of like horrible things of what people had to go through and the ideas that they have. The walls are filled with like black filth, that it's like black and shiny almost, of how much time like people spent there. It smells disgusting.
Just dirt.
I mean, you're breathing in rat feces to a point that within 20 minutes you're going like this and you're pulling out black from the rat feces from your nose. And it's the worst of conditions you can imagine. David is, at the time, 47 and has an autoimmune disease that if he doesn't have his medication, his immune system crashes. And so his medication is 15 hours away, and we're in a reality that I have 5 days from now to get David out of here, or else he dies in here. Beyond just like the discomfort of us finding ourselves in this situation, I have a ticking bomb situation where David's life is in my hands because I'm the team leader. And so right away we start to think of plans. A few days go by, or maybe our 4th day there, we haven't been given food, only water. We're starving, but we're even in worse conditions, and all I can think about is 3 days left, 2 days left. All I'm thinking about is David. However, why are they not giving us food? If they wanted to kill us, they could have killed us on the way. If they wanted to kill us, just don't give us water. You know, we can last a month without eating food. So they're not giving us food not to kill us, but for us to suffer as we go into our interrogations, for us to be weak and compliant to whatever they think that we're hiding, which we weren't hiding anything.
It's basic food light deprivation.
Right. So I'm thinking to myself, how could I use that in my advantage? And I tell myself, at some point they're going to bring food. It's already day 4. It's about to be day 5 or 6. At some point they're going to bring food. And day 5 starts, and they do bring us food. And before they did so, I told David and Noam, I was like, look, I have a plan. It's going to be hard because we're starving, but the moment that they bring us food, we're going to deny the food and just follow my lead. And so the guard comes, they bring us this nasty Nigerian prison food. And since most of them are Muslim, I knew I should speak in their language. And I said, listen, the same way most of you are Muslim, if someone was starving you, even for 5 days, I'm sure if someone gave you pork, you probably wouldn't eat it. So for us, this is haram, just like for you, pork is haram. I eat only halal, the halal of Musa, it's called kosher, and I can't eat your food. But I have a solution for you. There's a place here in Abuja that has kosher, my halal food, that if you tell them there are 3 Jews here that want food, they'll give it to you for free and even bring it all the way to the prison for us. You don't have to do any work.
And this is how you got Chabad involved.
And that's how we got Chabad involved. I told them it's called the Chabad of Abuja. They played on our bluff, and the next day also they didn't give us food, so only at the end of the 5th day did they finally reach out, or the morning of the 6th day is when they reach out to Chabad, realizing that we're not going to eat.
So what do you think after 3 weeks of being there was the main purpose of you even being there?
For them, it was, let me send a message to anyone that dares come and document the story of these people, that you are not to do so, and this is what happens to you if you do.
And for you?
For me, I think that it made us a lot stronger. I think it put us through tests that, again, when you go through very hard situations, everything in life after that becomes easy. I look at it as when I was in that situation, everything that I should have done, I did. Everything that was hard, even when it's the right decision, that's the decision that I make, especially when it was hard to make. So I look at that and I'm very proud of myself for those moments and overcoming and surviving. You know, after the first week, we were 2 weeks with Boko Haram terrorists. You know, one of the terrorists killed 70 people in a terror attack. These are the people that we're 24/7 with in this cage.
How do you respond to criticisms that pretty much say you don't have the historical or halachic training to be able to be identifying lost tribes? Usually historians are trained in languages, archaeology, anthropology, linguistics. I mean, but there is a lot of controversy behind what you're doing.
No, there's not a lot. There's small groups of people that are not happy with the shift in status quo, who a lot of them have problems with communities of Jews that may look different. And I think there's also a lot of trauma that Jews have. I think it's the idea of an other. And an other to many Jews represents, usually what an other always meant is someone coming to kill you.
So how many lost Jews would you say there are?
So out of the Zera Israel, which includes us, okay, meaning the seeds of Israel, all those who descend from this Israelite nation, that some are considered Jews, some are not considered Jews, I would say it's about 300 million people.
300 million people.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you want to bring back 300 million people to Judaism?
I'm saying that there's a lot of different communities that within those communities, within the millions that are the seed of, there's small percentages that never disconnected and that do want to come back. And I think those that do want to come back, just like someone who has no Israelite ancestry, should be able to, and according to the Zera Israel halachic understanding, is that you're actually supposed to seek those people and help them come back.
I can understand where people would have like an issue saying, okay, there's 50 million people that are connected to the Jewish people over here.
We work with historians, we work with archaeologists, we work with anthropologists, we work with rabbis, we work with every single geneticists even, every single sector to make sure that the information that we are getting and understanding and contextualizing is accurate. And that's the whole point of doing this documentary, to show every single perspective and layer of the stories that are happening here to spark the conversation.
How do you feel your comments in relation to the Black Hebrew Israelites were taken out of context?
There's a phenomenon happening where a lot of people of color, not just in America, in the Caribbean, in South America, wherever the slave trade went to, they're waking up to their identity. This is a real thing. It's a phenomenon. We have to address it. But when they're coming to other Jews and saying, my brother, I finally found out who I am. Come, let's unite together. Then most Jews who've never heard this idea, and because a lot of them were raised in Europe, so have a lot of European mentality, then start saying, there's no way you're Jewish, you're Black, or you're African. We've never heard of such a thing, so go away.
I think it goes back to this problem that a lot of Jews have, is that when we're faced with something anti-Semitic, we just point at it and label it anti-Semitic, and we don't engage with it, we don't debate it, we don't differentiate it. Now, in terms of the Black Hebrews situation, because you bring it up, before I go even into that, if you ask most rabbis that perform conversions, they will tell you that between 40 to 60% of converts at some point in their life find out that they were Jews all along, that they had Jewish ancestry, that their grandparents were Jews, never told them. Something like that happens, that they find out that they have Jewish ancestry. And number two, a lot of the slave trade were taken from tribes of Israel that were Jewish that we're visiting now. For example, the Igbos. 20% of the slave trade came from the Igbos. It wasn't white people coming and taking Black people.
So you're claiming that 20% of the African American slave trade were
descend from Zera Israel. And so when you speak to a lot of Black Hebrew Israelites, they'll tell you about how when they were coming to their identity, they came to Jews, us, people like us, and said, hey, I'm Jewish too. I just found out who I am. Help me like reconnect to my identity.
Right.
And the majority of the responses that they were met with was, go away, you're not Jewish, there's no way, that's insulting, no way.
Right.
And they want to have that conversation. And who's the only person having that conversation? Not us, Farrakhan. And so they lead themselves into the ideas of Farrakhan, which then manipulates them and says all sorts of horrible things that the Jews created slavery, blaming everything on the Jews, and corrupts their intention of wanting to connect and forces them to then reject. So they are projecting their sense of rejection.
What's your solution for the Palestinians?
I want to make it very clear to you, obviously you know this, but to all the viewers, I'm not in the middle. I'm Israeli. I'm a Jew. I'm on Team Israel. However, I don't see me being, as a Jew and an Israeli, that has to be against other peoples who live in this land. Quite to the contrary. If someone loves this land just like I do, I think there's commonality and ways for us to create something together. So I would like to see a reality where we take a list of the top 10 things that Israelis need for their aspirations, the top 10 things that Palestinians need for their aspirations, the top 10 things that we're suffering from that we want change, the top 10 things that they have suffering from that want change, and to create a reality based on that.
And what if the number one thing on that top 10 list of Palestinians is from the river to the sea to be free?
I don't think that fundamentally when you speak to Palestinians and they say from the river to the sea, what they mean is we want to remove what Israelis want from their narrative. I think they want to achieve a reality where they can access the land freely, they have freedom of speech, they have freedom of movement, they feel equal, they feel that they have education, that they feel have all the opportunities. And if that is given to them, I don't think that they would be convinced by the people who tell them that the only way to get that is by attacking Israel.
You're not drinking enough.
So, l'chaim.
L'chaim. I'd like to ask you my final question of the evening. It's the same thing that I have asked every single person that has been on the show. I'm 13 years old. I'm getting ready to be a bar mitzvah. You have one sentence to teach me everything that you have learned up until this point in your life. What is that?
Every human being was brought into this earth to fulfill a tikkun, which means to make a correction on many levels. And we all have our own strengths and skills, and we need to use those strengths and skills in order to correct the problems that we see around us. And so every single time that you see a problem in front of you going on with your life, from the smallest thing to the biggest thing, make sure that every single time you don't miss the opportunity to correct it.
Well, I'd like to thank my very special guest, Rudy Rochman, for joining me on this episode of Wine with Adam. Today, if you like the wine that we're drinking, the Shilo Mosaic 2019, you can find it at wineonthevine.com. And if you want to plant a vine with the Shilo Winery, you can go to wineonthevine.org/JNS to plant a vine. And if you like this video, don't forget to click below and hit the subscribe button. And remember, when you're drinking your Israeli wine, drink it with somebody you love. L'chaim.